So this is going to be another movie review. This one's called Die Hard 1988. I'm giving this one 5 out of 5 stars. I thought this was better than the sequel. Let's see what the movie poster says. "40 stories of sheer adventure. High above the city of LA, a team of terrorists has seized a building, taken hostages, and declared war. One man has managed to escape, an off-duty cop hiding somewhere inside. He's alone, tired, and the only chance anyone has got." All right. So this is the movie that started all the Die Hard ripoffs. It isn't actually terrorists, but somebody who's robbing a vault full of money. I've never seen this kind of money before, but it's like full-page dollar bills or something. I don't know. Anyway, this is going to be another Karate Man recommendation. I posted a link to the $3.99 video on YouTube, which I just watched, more than 2 hours long. My only criticism is that this film is not nonstop action as it's made out to be. It's there's a lot of buildup and character development in this. It's kind of a tearjerker at the end, with all the token black characters coming through, doing their heroic duty. So there's that. Die Hard is a 1988 U.S. action film directed by John McTiernan, who also did Predator, The Hunt for Red October. I guess those are a couple on my list, thanks to Karate Man. And written by Jeb Stewart. And Stephen E. D'Souza. Who also did 48 Hours Commando, The Running Man, and Judge Dredd. So this is based on the 1979 novel Nothing Lasts Forever by Roderick Thorpe. Stars Bruce Willis, Alan Sidney Patrick Rickman, never heard of him, some lamestream Shakespearean actor. Then you got Alex Borisovich Goodenough, some ballet dancer dude. Then you've got Bonnie Bedelia, who's like a soap opera actress. And Reginald VelJohnson, who's in Die Hard 2. William Atherton. I better put William Atherton's name and Stephen E. D'Souza's name in there. Paul Xavier Gleason, Hart Bachner, then you've got Clarence Alfred Gilliard Jr., Devorex White, and James Shigeta in supporting roles. There are more supporting roles, but I'll get into that later. Die Hard follows New York City police detective John McClane, Bruce Willis, who is caught up in a terrorist takeover of a Los Angeles skyscraper while visiting his estranged wife. Again, they're not really terrorists. They're more like a skyscraper vault robbers. Stewart was hired by 20th Century Fox to adopt Thorpe's novel in 1987. His first draft was greenlit immediately as the studio was eager for a summer blockbuster the following year. The role of McClane was turned down by a host of the decade's most popular actors, including Arnold Schwarzenegger and Sylvester Stallone. Known mainly for work on television, Willis was paid $5 million for his involvement, placing him among Hollywood's highest paid actors. The deal was seen as a poor investment by industry professionals and attracted significant controversy towards the film. Prior to its release, filming took place between November 1987 and March 1988 on a $25 million to $35 million budget, and almost entirely on location in and around Fox Plaza in Los Angeles. Expectations for Die Hard were low. Some marketing materials omitted Willis's image, ostensibly because the publicity team determined that the setting was as important as McClane. Upon its release in July 1988, initial reviews were mixed. Criticism focused on its violence, plot, and Willis's performance, while McTiernan's direction and Rickman's charismatic portrayal of the villain Hans Gruber were praised. Defying predictions, Die Hard grossed approximately $140 million, becoming the year's 10th highest grossing film and the highest grossing action film. Receiving 4 Academy Award nominations, it elevated Willis to leading man status and made Rickman a celebrity. I don't really care about this Rickman guy. I don't know anything about him. Die Hard has been critically reevaluated and is now considered one of the greatest action films of all time. And that's why you have all these Die Hard ripoffs. I thought the sequel wasn't as good as the original, unfortunately. But the sequel is still a good movie. It is considered to have revitalized the action genre, largely due to its depiction of McClane as a vulnerable and fallible protagonist in contrast to the muscle-bound and invisible heroes of the other films of the period. Retrospective commentators also identified and analyzed its thematic concerns, including vengeance, masculinity, gender roles, and American anxieties over foreign influences. The film produced a host of imitators. The term Die Hard became shorthand for plots featuring overwhelming odds in a restricted environment such as Die Hard on the Bus. It created a franchise comprising the sequels Die Hard 2, which I have seen and I won't review. I got a VHS copy for Christmas one year when I was living in Robot City. This was right around the time when I met my second wife. Die Hard with a Vengeance, 1995. Live Free or Die Hard, 2007. And A Good Day to Die Hard, 2013. Plus video games, comics, and other merchandise deemed culturally, historically, or aesthetically significant by the U.S. Library of Congress. Die Hard was selected for preservation in the National Film Registry in 2017. Lamestream. Due to its Christmas Eve setting, Die Hard is often named One of the best Christmas films, although its status as a Christmas film is disputed. Well, it does take place during Christmas time, and there's sort of a family reunion theme, much like It's a Wonderful Life, I guess. I don't know. Let's see. Produced by Gordon Company and Silver Pictures. Distributed by 20th Century Fox. Release dates: July 12th, 1988 at Avco Theater, and July 15th, 1988. Running time 132 minutes. That is way too long. Country US, language English, budget $25 million to $35 million. Box office $139.8 million to $141.5 million. That's pretty sizable return on investment, I'd say. On Christmas Eve, New York City Police Department, NYPD, Detective John McClane arrives in Los Angeles, hoping to reconcile with his estranged wife, Holly, at a party held by her employer, the Nakatomi Corporation, run by James Shigeta. He is driven to Nakatomi Plaza by limo driver Argyle, who offers to wait for McClane in the garage. While McClane washes himself, the tower is seized by German ex-radical Hans Gruber and his heavily armed team, including Karl Vresky and Theo. Everyone in the tower is taken hostage, except for McClane, who slips away, and Argyle, who remains oblivious to events because he's partying, listening to music, drinking, calling up his girlfriend. You name it. This guy is on a 5-hour break. Gruber is posing as a terrorist to steal the $640 million in untraceable bearer bonds in the Billings vault. So those are the pieces of paper. They're actually not paper money, but they are bearer bonds, which makes sense to me now. So I guess if you hold the physical copies, you are the owner. Sort of like physical stock certificates. I don't know. I'm just guessing. He kills executive Joseph Takagi, also known as James Shigeta, after failing to extract the access code from him, and Gruber tasks Theo with breaking into the vault. The terrorists are alerted to McClane's presence, and Carl's brother Tony is sent after him. McClane kills Tony and takes his weapon and radio, which he uses to contact the skeptical Los Angeles Police Department, LAPD. Sergeant Al Powell is sent to investigate. Meanwhile, McClane kills more so-called terrorists and recovers their bag of C4 and detonators. Realizing Powell is about to leave, having found nothing amiss, McClane drops a terrorist corpse onto his car. After Powell calls for backups, a SWAT team attempts to storm the building, but is counterattacked by the terrorists. McClane throws some C4 down an elevator shaft, causing an explosion that kills some of the terrorists and ends the counterattack. Okay. Lots of cool explosions in this one. We like explosions on this channel. I think Adrian has seen this movie 15 times already. Holly's coworker, Harry Ellis, attempts to negotiate on Gruber's behalf, but Harry Ellis, the cocaine addict, is killed by Gruber when McClane refuses to surrender. Um, while checking the explosives on the roof, Gruber encounters McLean and pretends to be an escaped hostage. McLean gives Gruber a gun. Gruber attempts to shoot McLean but finds the weapon is unloaded, and he's saved only by the intervention of his henchmen. They're still being called terrorists for some reason. McLean. So what happened was McLean knew that this escaped hostage guy was actually Gruber, and that's why he didn't put any bullets in the gun before handing it to him. McLean escapes but is injured by shattered glass and loses the detonators. Outside, Federal Bureau of Investigation FBI agents take control. They ordered the power to be shut off, which, as Gruber had anticipated, disables the final vault lock so his team can collect the bonds. It's funny how everything seems to happen in chronological order according to plan, according to the so-called terrorist plan. The FBI agrees to Gruber's demand for a helicopter, intending to send helicopter gunships to eliminate the group. Yeah, Robert Davi thinks he's in Vietnam. McLean realized Gruber plans to blow the roof to kill the hostages and fake his team's deaths. Carl, enraged by Tony's death, attacks McLean and is seemingly killed. Gruber sees a news report by Robert Thornburg on McLean's children and deduces that he is Holly's husband. The hostages are taken to the roof while Gruber keeps Holly with them. McLean drives the hostages from the roof just before Gruber detonates it and destroys the approaching FBI helicopters. Meanwhile, Theo retrieves an escape vehicle from the parking garage, but Theo is knocked out by Argyle, who has been following events on the limo's CB radio. Oh, he finally woke up from his partying. Weary and battered, McLean finds Holly with Gruber and his remaining henchmen. McLean surrenders to Gruber and is about to be shot, but grabs his concealed service pistol taped to his back and uses his last two bullets to wound Gruber and to kill his accomplice by shooting him in the head with his last remaining bullet. Oh, must be a pretty good shooter. Gruber crashes through the window but grabs into Holly's wristwatch and makes a last-ditch attempt to kill the pair. McLean unclasps the watch and Gruber falls to his death. Outside, Carl ambushes McLean and Holly but is shot dead by Powell. Holly punches Thornburg when he attempts to interview McLean. That was kind of bizarre. A woman punching a man? Really? Other cast members include Bruder's. Oh, here we go. Other cast members: Al Leong. I mentioned Robert Davi, and then there's Grand L. Bush. Yeah, I've got to add a couple names to this description box later. The development of Die Hard began in 1987 when screenwriter Jeb Stewart was in dire financial straits. His script, purchased by Columbia Pictures, had been abandoned, and a contract at Walt Disney Pictures was not providing him with sufficient income. Stewart had 6 weeks between contracted work, so his agent, Jeremy Zimmer, contacted Lloyd Levin, the head of development of the Gordon Company, a producing arm of 20th Century Fox. Levin asked Stewart to work on the adoption of the 1979 novel Nothing Lasts Forever, written by former private investigator Roderick Thorpe. Oh, Karate Man's in the chat room. Must be daytime in Australia. Bruce Willis, best movie of all time, although Die Hard with a Vengeance is Karate Man's favorite. The first three are one of the greatest action movies in the history of action. Yippee-ki-yay. And then he curses afterwards. Alan Rickman as the main villain, Hans Gruber as one of the greatest villains ever. Okay. According to Karate Man, this movie has it all. Great action, thrills, one-liners, memorable villains, badass action hero John McClane, music, explosions. Well, it's a Karate Man movie. Let's just put it that way. Okay. Levin asked Stewart to work on an adoption. Okay, so Thorpe had been inspired to write Nothing Lasts Forever by a dream he had in which he armed assailants chase a man through a building after watching the 1974 disaster film, The Towering Inferno. All right, so there you have it. Die Hard is actually a ripoff on The Towering Inferno. Fox had adapted the book's 1966 predecessor, The Detective, for a 1968 film starring Frank Sinatra as NYPD Detective Joe Leland. And Fox purchased the sequel rights before Nothing Lasts Forever had been written. Levin gave Stewart creative freedom as long as he retained the Christmas in Los Angeles setting, the concept he considered would provide an interesting aesthetic. The film was pitched as Rambo in an office building, referring to the successful Rambo film series. So I guess Die Hard is a mix between Rambo and The Towering Inferno. Producers Lawrence Gordon and Joe Silver hired director John McTiernan, another lamestream director, because of his work with them on the successful 1987 action film predecessor, which I have not seen, but it's on my list. McTiernan agreed to direct on the condition that the film would have some joy and not simply contain mean, nasty acts seen in other terrorist films. These people are not even terrorists. They're like professional Bond paper money thieves or whatever. I don't know. Stewart began working 18-hour days at his office at Walt Disney Studios in Burbank, which left him exhausted and on edge. After an argument with his wife, he went for a drive and saw a box in his lane. Unable to avoid it, he was forced to drive over it and discovered it to be empty. According to Stewart, he pulled over on the side of the freeway, his heart pounding. From this, Stewart conceived a central theme of the story of a man who should have apologized to his wife before a catastrophe. He returned home to reconcile with his wife and wrote 35 pages that night to shape the McClane's relationship. Stewart also drew upon the marital problems of his peers, including divorces and ex-wives reverting to their to use their maiden name. My second wife never changed her maiden name, and my first wife never changed her married name. Go figure. John McClane was named John Ford initially, but 20th Century Fox felt this was disrespectful to the deceased director of the same name. Stewart chose McClane as a good, strong Scottish name based on his own Celtic heritage. He described the character as a flawed hero who learns a lesson in the worst possible situation and becomes better, but not a different person. Having no experience writing action films, Stewart drew on his experience writing thrillers, focusing on making the audience care about McClane, Holly, and their reconciliation. As Stewart pitched his story to executives, Gordon interrupted him, told him to complete a draft, and left the meeting. Stewart finished his first draft just under 6 weeks later. Stewart credits Levin for helping him understand nothing lasts forever. He adapted many sequences faithfully, including a C4 charge being thrown down an elevator shaft and the central character, Joe Leland, leaping from the roof. However, the novel is told entirely from Leland's perspective, and events he is not present for are not detailed. Its tone is more cynical and nihilistic. Leland visits his drug-addicted daughter at the Klaxon building, and he dies having fallen from the building alongside villain Anton Gruber, who is using naive male and female guerrilla soldiers to rob the building because of Klaxon's support for a dictatorial government. So the book has more terrorists. They're calling them terrorists on Wikipedia because they're from West Germany, I guess. This made their motivations less clear. And Leland more conflicted about killing them, especially the women. Leland is seen as an experienced older man working as a high-powered security consultant. Stewart rejected the novel's tone for being too sad and believed an older action hero, Leland being over 60, was nonsensical. Stewart created new materials for scenes when McClane is not present, expanding upon or introducing characters. He gave Powell a wife and children, allowing him to relate more closely to McClane, and Argyle, whose novel counterpart disappears early in the story, is present throughout Stewart's draft, supporting McClane by broadcasting rap music over the terrorist radios. Among the script's original characters is the unscrupulous journalist Richard Thornburg, which I guess I should put the actor's name in the description. A fan of prominent Western film actor John Wayne, Stewart was inspired to carry a Western motif throughout the script, including cowboy lingo. He befriended a construction superintendent at the under construction Fox Plaza in Los Angeles, allowing him access to the building to gain ideas on how to lay out the characters and scenes. He delivered the finished screenplay in June 1987. It was greenlit the following day, in part because 20th Century Fox needed a summer blockbuster for 1988. Lamestream! Actress Bonnie Bedelia. In 1974, she was chosen by Willis. There's a picture of her from 1974 when she was much younger and much more comely with her 70s hairdo. And it's on Wikipedia. She was chosen by Willis to portray Holly Gennaro McClane after he saw her performance in Heart Like a Wheel from 1983. As Die Hard was based on the novel sequel to the detective film, the studio was contractually obliged to offer Frank Sinatra the role. Sinatra, who was 70 at the time, declined. The role was offered to various major stars, including Sylvester Stallone, Richard Gere, Clint Eastwood, Harrison Ford, Burt Reynolds, Nick Nolte, Mel Gibson, Don Johnson, Richard Dean Anderson, Paul Newman, James Caan, and Al Pacino. What about Arnold Schwarzenegger? The prevailing action archetype of the era was a muscle-bound, invincible macho man like Arnold Schwarzenegger, who was offered the role, but he wanted to branch out into comedy, and he turned it down to star in Twins, 1988, which I'm sure Karate Man put on my list. Another lame string movie. Willis was known mainly for his comedic role in the romantic comedy television series Moonlighting. I have that on my list as well, starring opposite Sybil Shepherd. He declined the role because of his contractual obligations to Moonlighting, but when Shepherd became Pregos, the show's production was stopped for 11 weeks, giving Willis enough time to take the role. McTiernan's girlfriend had a chance meeting with the representative of CinemaScore and asked them for analysis of Willis as a star. Their analysis showed that casting Willis would not have a negative impact. His participation was confirmed 2 weeks later. The choice was controversial as Willis had only starred in one other film, the moderately successful comedy Blind Date from 1987, which I have not seen, don't care about. At the time, there was also a clear distinction between film and television actors, though films like Ghostbusters had demonstrated that television stars could lead a blockbuster film. Other television actors like Shelley Long and Bill Cosby had failed in their recent attempts to make the transition from television to film. Wilson received $5 million for the role, giving him a salary comparable to more successful established film actors like Dustin Hoffman, Warren Beatty, and Robert Redford. 20th Century Fox president Leonard Goldberg justified the figure by saying Die Hard needed an actor of Willis's potential. And Gordon said Willis's everyman persona was essential to conveying the idea that the hero would actually could actually fail. Other Fox sources were reporting as saying the studio was desperate for a star after being turned down by so many popular actors. Willis said, "They paid me what they thought I was worth for the film and for them." He described the character as unlike the larger-than-life characters portrayed by Stallone and Schwarzenegger, saying, even though he's a hero, he's just a regular guy. He's an ordinary guy who's been thrown into extraordinary circumstances. Willis drew upon his working-class upbringing in South Jersey for the character, including that attitude and disrespect for authority, that gallows sense of humor, the reluctant hero. Rickman was already in his early 40s as he made his screen debut as Hans Gruber. I know nothing about this Rickman guy. Karate Man's crazy about him. And I know absolutely nothing about this guy. So don't ask me. He was cast by Silver, who had him perform in a Broadway version of Les Liaisons Dangereuses Cease, playing the villainous Vicomte de Valmont. Bedelia was cast at Willis's suggestion after he saw her in 1983 biographical film Heart Like a Wheel, another one that I haven't seen, with whom he had worked previously. Robert Duvall, Gene Hackman, Lawrence Fishburne, and Wesley Snipes were considered for the role. Ellis is portrayed by Hart Bachner, an acquaintance of Silver. His role was shot in chronological order over 3 weeks. McTiernan had wanted the character to be suave like actor Cary Grant, but Bachner conceived of the character's motivations coming from cocaine use and insecurity. McTiernan hated the performance initially until he noticed Gordon and Silver were entertained by Bachner's antics. So you've got a late 80s cocaine addict as one of the hostages. I didn't really care for that character at all. John McClane's catchphrase, "Yippee-ki-yay, MF," was inspired by Western actor Roy Rogers, pictured, who says, "Yippee-ki-yay, kids." Screenwriter Stephen E. D'Souza rewrote Stewart's script because he had experience in blending action and comedy. I've got to add his name. He's written 48 Hours, Commando, The Running Man, Die Hard, and Judge Dredd. He approached the story as if Gruber were the protagonist. He said if Gruber had not planned the robbery and put it together, McClane would have just gone to the party and reconciled or not with his wife. You should sometimes think about looking at your movie through the point of view of the villain who is really driving the narrative. D'Souza used blueprints of Fox Plaza to help him lay out the story and character locations within the building. The script continued to undergo changes up to and during filming. Several subplots and traits for characters other than McClane were created during the first few weeks of filming because Willis was still working on Moonlighting. He would film the show for up to 10 hours and then work on Die Hard at night. McTiernan gave Willis time off to rest and tasked D'Souza with adding the new scenes. These include scenes with Holly's housekeeper, Holly confronting Gruber, following Takaji's death, James Shigeta, an introductory scene for Thornburg, and more moments between Powell and his fellow officers. Silver wanted a scene between McClane and Gruber before the film's denouement, but D'Souza could not think of a plausible scenario until he happened to overhear Rickman affecting an American accent. He realized this would allow Gruber to disguise himself when he met McClane, and the earlier scene of Takaji's murder was reworked to conceal Gruber's identity from McClane. Due to the addition of the Gruber-McClane meeting scene, a different one in which McClane kills Theo was excised. In Stewart's original script, Die Hard took place over 3 days, but McTiernan was inspired to have it take place over a single night, like Shakespeare's A Midsummer Night's Dream. He did not want to use terrorists as the villains, as he considered them to be too mean, and avoid focusing on the terrorist politics in favor of making them thieves driven by monetary pursuits. He felt this would make it more suitable summer entertainment. McClane's character was not fully realized until almost halfway through production. McTiernan and Willis had determined that McClane is a man who does not like himself much, but is doing the best he can in a bad situation. McClane's catchphrase, "Yippee-ki-yay, MF," was inspired by old cowboy lingo, including cowboy actor Roy Rogers' own "Yippee-ki-yay, kids," to emphasize his all-American character. There was debate over whether to use "Yippee-ki-yay, MF" or "Yippee-ti-yay, MF." William endorsed the former. Principal photography began in November 1987 and concluded by early March 1988 with an approximate $25 million to $35 million budget. Filming took place almost entirely in around Fox Plaza in Century City, situated on the Avenue of the Stars. The location was chosen late in production by production designer Jackson DeGovia. A mostly unoccupied building was needed because the under construction Fox Plaza offered. It was secured with two main conditions: no filming during the day and no damage from explosions. Fox Plaza in Century City, Los Angeles, which served as the setting for Nakatomi Plaza. Cinematographer Jan DeBont said the building's design was distinct, making it a character on its own, and clear views of the building were available from a distance, enabling establishing shots as McClane approaches it. The surrounding cities could be seen from within the building, enhancing the realism. DeBont frequently used handheld cameras to film closer to the characters, creating a more cinematic intimacy. I'm not sure I want to see Bruce Willis, sweaty, bloody body. Okay, whatever. Very little of the film was storyboarded beforehand because DeBont believed intricate storyboarding made his job redundant. Instead, he and McTiernan would discuss that day's filming in detail and the feeling or sensation they wanted to convey. DeBont was more concerned with creating a dramatic rather than an attractive shot. He cited the use of real flares in the film that generated unpredictable smoke and sometimes obscured the image. Okay. Karate Man says 1988 was another great year for action movies. Bloodsport, Above the Law, Rambo 3, Red Heat, Braddock Missing in Action 3, Messenger of Death, The Deadpool, They Live, and Mercenary Fighters, Platoon Hero, Hero and the Terror, which also came out in 1988. I love when Robert Davis character says this just like Saigon while in the helicopter. I thought it was dumb. Oh, yeah, Hell Comes to Frogtown came out in 1988. Just remembered. Action Jackson, a Red Scorpion also came out in 1988. Shakedown as well. We love action on this channel. Well, Karate Man loves action. I love dystopian movies like Omega Doom. Willis's first day on set was on November 2nd, 1987. He came straight from filming Moonlighting to shoot one of his most pivotal scenes where McClane leaps from a rooftop as it explodes behind him, saved only by the length of a fire hose. Willis found acting in Die Hard difficult because it differed from previous experiences in that he was often alone, not having any personal encounters with others. He's just talking on his walkie-talkie the whole time. He did not spend much time with the rest of the cast between takes, opting to spend it with his new partner, Demi Moore. How many husbands has Demi Moore had? In contrast to their on-screen dynamics, Bedelia and VelJohnson spent most of their time between scenes with Rickman. When asked to throw Holly to the floor, Rickman refused because he believed it was not fitting action for the civilized Gruber, and that Holly, a self-possessed career woman, would not have let him. The film's ending had not been finalized when filming began. In the finished film, Theo retrieves an ambulance from the truck. The terrorists, the so-called terrorists, arrived in the vault thieves, I should say, to use as an escape vehicle, but this was a late addition. The truck the terrorists had filmed arriving in was too small to hold an ambulance. Another scene showing the terrorists synchronizing their TAG Hauer watches also showed the truck was empty. The scene had to be deleted, leading to other necessary changes as scripted. McClane realizes that the American hostage, or the U.S. hostage he encounters, is Gruber because of his distinctive TAG Hauer watch he observed on the other so-called terrorists. The watchers were no longer an established plot point. It was necessitated the introduction of a heroic scene for Argyle, who gets to stop Theo's escape. Devronix actually punched Gilliard during the scene, which was added only in the last 10 days of filming. There was flexibility with some roles depending on the actors' performances, meaning some characters were kept in the film longer and others killed off sooner. James Shigeta lasted about 30 minutes. The actors were also given some room to improvise, like Theo's line, "The quarterback is toast." Bachner's "Hans Bubby, I'm your white knight," and the henchman Uli stealing a chocolate bar during the SWAT assault. McTiernan took stylistic influence from French New Wave cinema. When editing the film, he recruited Frank J. Euroist and John F. Link to edit the scenes together while in mid-motion, contrary to the mainstream style of editing used at the time. Before hiring composer Michael Kamen, McTiernan knew he wanted to include Beethoven's Ninth Symphony, commonly known as Ode to Joy, having heard it in Stanley Kubrick's 1971 film A Clockwork Orange. Kamen objected to tarnishing the piece in an action film and offered to misuse German composer Richard Wagner's music instead. Once McTiernan explained how the Ninth Symphony had been used in A Clockwork Orange to highlight the ultraviolence, Kamen had a better understanding of McTiernan's intentions. In exchange, Kamen insisted that they also license the use of Sing in the Rain, 1952, also used in A Clockwork Orange, and Winter Wonderland, 1934. He mixed the melodies of Ode to Joy, Winter Wonderland, and Sing in the Rain into his score, mainly to underscore the villains. The samples of Ode to Joy are played in slightly lower keys to sound more menacing. The references build to a performance of the symphony when Gruber finally accesses the Nakatomi vault. The score also references "Let It Snow, Let It Snow, Let It Snow." I feel like I'm listening to a Home Depot Christmas loop. Kamen initially saw a mostly incomplete version of Die Hard and was unimpressed. He saw the film as primarily about a phenomenal bad guy who made McClane seem less important. Kamen was dismissive of film scores, believing they could not stand alone from the film. His original score incorporates pizzicato and arco strings, brass, woodwinds, and sleigh bells added during moments of menace to counter their festive meaning. There are other uses of classical diegetic music in the film. The musicians at the party play Brandenburg Concerto No. 3 by Johann Sebastian Bach. McTiernan did not like a piece created for the final scene where Carl attempts to kill McClane and decided to use a temporary track that was already in place, a piece of James Horner's unused score for Aliens, 1986. Cues are also used for the 1987 action film Man on Fire. Die Hard also features Christmas in Hollis by Run DMC, which would go on to be considered a Christmas classic, in part because of its use in the film. Oh boy, Run DMC. I used to like them when I was a teenager. All right. The perception of the film stunts changed shortly before production of Die Hard following a fatal accident on the set of Twilight Zone, the movie, 1983. And a push was made to prioritize the film's crew over the film itself. Even so, Willis insisted on performing many of his own stunts, including rolling down steps and standing on top of an active elevator. The first scene he shot was his leap from the top of the Nakatomi Plaza with a fire hose wrapped around his waist. The stunt involved a 25-foot, 7.6 meters leap from a 5-story parking garage ledge onto an airbag as a 60-foot, 18 meters wall of flame exploded behind him. He considered it one of his toughest stunts. The explosive force pushed him towards the edge of the airbag, and the crew was concerned he had died. Stuntman Ken Bates stood in for Willis when his character is hanging from the building. Set was used for... Alan Rickman was suspended from a raised platform and then dropped into an airbag below. To capture the descent, an automated system controlled the camera's focus ring to keep Rickman in focus. That scene looked fake. To me, it looked like a CGI shot. The set was used for the following scene where McClane shoots out a window to re-enter the building. It was shot approximately halfway into the filming schedule so that all involved had gained more stunt experience. The window was made of fragile sugar glass that took 2 hours to set up, and there were only a few takes for this reason. Instead of a hoist, the team of stuntmen positioned below the window dragged the hose and pulled Willis toward the edge as they could better control Willis's fall if he went over. Editor Frank Uristi kept the scene where McClane falls down a ventilation shaft and catches onto a lower opening. Willis's stuntman accidentally fell further than intended. During a scene where McClane shoots a terrorist through a table, Willis suffered a permanent 2/3 hearing loss in his left ear caused by firing loud blank cartridges close to his head. For Gruber's fall from Nakatomi Plaza, Rickman was dropped between 20 and 70 feet, or 6 and 21 meters. Reports are inconsistent. He was suspended on a raised platform and dropped onto a blue screen airbag. So it was CGI. That scene looked terrible. This allowed the background behind him to be composited with footage taken from Fox Plaza and falling confetti that looked like bearer bonds. Rickman had to fall backward onto the bag, something stuntman avoided to control their fall. McTiernan convinced Rickman by demonstrating the stunt himself and falling onto a pile of cardboard boxes. Rickman was told he would be dropped on the count of 3, but he was let go earlier to elicit a genuine look of surprise. McTiernan said there's no way he could fake that. The first take was used, but McTiernan convinced Rickman to perform a second one as backup. Capturing the stunt was difficult because it was impossible for a human operator to refocus the camera fast enough to prevent the image from blurring as Rickman fell away. Supervised by visual effects producer Richard Edlund, Boss Film Studios engineered an automated system using a computer that rapidly refocused the camera via motor on its focus ring. A wide-angle lens camera shooting at 270 frames per second was used, creating footage that played 10 times slower than normal. Despite these innovations, the camera struggled to keep Rickman entirely in focus during this 1.5-second fall. The scene cuts away from Rickman as the usable footage runs out. To complete Gruber's fatal descent, Bates was lowered 318 feet or 97 meters from Fox Plaza in a harness that slowed his fall as he neared the ground. Some of the Fox Plaza residents, frustrated by the debris and destruction around the building, refused to turn off their office lights for exterior shots of the plaza. Months of negotiations took place for permission to drive a SWAT vehicle up the steps of Fox Plaza. A railing knocked over during shooting was never replaced. Small explosives moving along a guide wire were disguised as the terrorist rockets, giving the appearance of them striking the vehicle. In the scene where McClane throws C4 down the elevator shaft to stop the assault, the effects team unwillingly blew out every window on one floor of the building. The final helicopter scene took 6 months of preparation. Only 2 hours were set aside to film it. It took 3 attempts above Fox Plaza and 9 camera crews filming with 24 different cameras. DeBont said the different angles enhanced the on-location realism. Mortar-like devices filled with propane were used for explosions. They took 10 minutes to install and offered a 6-second burst of flame. The explosion of Nakatomi rooftop was created using a miniature model. This was the only miniature used in the film because Hans Boehringer Fritz was an inexperienced actor and filming was behind schedule. A native stuntman was put in a blonde wig and equipped with squibs to capture the character's death in one take. To prevent the in-building locations looking similar because of the standard fluorescent office lighting, DeBont concealed small film lights in high locations. He controlled these to create more dynamic and dramatic lighting. This gave him the opportunity to use unusual light positioning. He also placed fluorescent tubes on the floor in one scene to indicate they had not been installed. The shifting nature of the filming script meant some sets were designed before it was known what they were to be used for. The Nakatomi building's 30th floor, where the hostages were held, was one of the few sets. It contained a recreation of Frank Lloyd Wright designed house, Falling Water. Degovia reasoned that it reflected the contemporary trend of Japanese corporations buying up U.S. corporate assets. Oh, those evil Japanese. They're taking over our VHS machines. An early design for the Nakatomi logo was too reminiscent of a swastika, and it was redesigned to look closer to a samurai warrior's helmet. A 380-foot long, 121 meters matte painting provided provided the city backdrop as viewed from inside the building's 30th floor. It featured animated lights and other lighting techniques to present both moving traffic daytime and nighttime. The summer of 1988 was suspected by film industry executives to be dominated by action and comedy films. Although a broader range of films were released that year, more films targeted older audiences rather than teenagers, a reflection of the increasing age of the average audience member. Sequels to successful films, Crocodile Dundee 2, Rambo 3, were predicted to control the May box office and break opening weekend revenue records. Industry executives also had high expectations for the comedies Coming to America and Who Framed Roger Rabbit. Expectations for Die Hard were low compared to its action film competition, the Schwarzenegger starring Red Heat and Clint Eastwood's The Deadpool. New York Times noted that Die Hard and the comedies Big Top Pee-wee and Bull Durham would be closely scrutinized by the industry for success or failure. Die Hard was singled out for Willis's salary and the failure earlier that year of his previous film, The Western Sunset, which brought into question his leading man capabilities. Lawrence Gordon agreed that not using a major action film star like Stallone or Eastwood meant audience interest in Die Hard was lower than it might have been. The larger salaries paid to these stars were based on their built-in audience that could attract to a film's opening week, with good word of mouth supporting the film thereafter. But Willis did not have a built-in audience. Willis featured prominently in the film's early marketing campaign, but it underwent several changes as the film's release date drew nearer. Willis had developed a reputation as an arrogant actor concerned with his own fame. His refusal to address this or speak about his personal life to the media had reinforced this perception. For his part, Willis said he wanted the media to focus on his acting. There were reports that cinema audiences would moan at Willis's appearance in Die Hard trailers, and that a representative from an unnamed theater chain had pulled the trailer in response. Research by several film studios revealed that audiences had a negative opinion of Willis overall, and little or no interest in seeing him in Die Hard. Newsweek's David Anson called Willis the most unpopular actor ever to get a $5 million for making a movie. As 20th Century Fox's confidence in Willis's appeal faltered, the film's poster were changed to focus on Nakatomi Plaza with Willis's name billed in tiny print. Willis's image was not Willis's image was not included in the film's first full-page newspaper advertisement. In mid-July, 20th Century Fox executive Tom Chirac denied that Willis was being hidden, saying their marketing strategy had changed when they realized that the building was as important as the character. The building was as important a character as the actor. Defying expectations, sneak previews of the film were well received by audiences, and the week following its release, the advertising began featuring Willis more prominently. Despite his dislike of interviews, Willis appeared on several daytime shows to promote the film, explaining why he was more involved in the promotion for Die Hard. Willis said, "I'm so excited about this film. To me, it represents why I wanted to be an actor." Die Hard's premiere took place on July 12, 1988, at the Avco Theater in Los Angeles, California. In North America, the film received a limited release in 21 theaters in 13 cities on July 15, 1988, earning $601,851, an average of $28,959 per theater. It was considered a successful debut with a high per theater average gross. The Los Angeles Times said the late change in advertising focus and diminishing popularity for action films should have worked against Die Hard. Instead, positive reviews and the limited release had made it a must-see film. It received a wide release the following week on July 22nd, 1988, across 1,276 theaters and earning $7.1 million, an average of $5,569 per theater. The film finished as the number 3 film of the weekend, behind Coming to America. Another lamestream Karate Man movie that I have on my list, which was $8.8 million in its 4th week of release, and Who Framed Roger Rabbit. That was one of my stepdad's favorite movies on VHS, which got $8.9 million in its 5th. The film fell to number 4 in the 3rd week with a further gross of $6.1 million, just behind Coming to America, $6.4 million, Who Framed Roger Rabbit, $6.5 million, and the debuting romantic comedy Cocktail, $11.7 million. In its 4th weekend, it rebounded to the number 3 position with $5.7 million. While the film never claimed the number 1 box office ranking, it spent 10 straight weeks among the top 5 highest grossing films. In total, the film earned an approximate box office gross of between $81.3 million and $83 million. This made it the 7th highest grossing film of 1988, behind Crocodile Dundee 2, $109.3 million, Buddy Comedy Twins, $111.9 million, fantasy comedy Big, which I actually saw in the movie theater with my mother, $104.9 million, Coming to America, $128.1 million, Who Framed Roger Rabbit, $154.1 million, and the comedy drama Rain Man, which I also saw with my mother in the movie theater that year when I was 17 years old, $172.8 million, Rain Man. Outside North America, Die Hard is estimated to have earned $57.7 million, making it an approximate cumulative gross of between $139.1 million and $140.7 million. This figure makes it the 10th highest grossing film worldwide of 1998, behind Big, $151 million, Cocktail, $171 million, A Fish Called Wanda, $177 million, Rambo 3, $189 million, Twins, $216 million, Crocodile Dundee 2, $239 million, Coming to America, $288 million, Who Framed Roger Rabbit, $329 million, and Rain Man, $354 million. The summer of 1998 saw box office grosses totaling $1.7 billion, breaking the previous year's record-breaking summer by $100 million. And it was the most successful summer since 1984, when only 3 films earned more than $100 million in North America. Defying pre-release expectations, Die Hard was considered an enormous success. In a year otherwise dominated by comedy films, Die Hard's overperformance was an anomaly compared to other action films such as Rambo 3 and Red Heat, which failed to meet box office expectations. Film critic Sheila Benson believed this demonstrated a generational shift in audiences and their taste. In particular, 25 to 37-year-old men had turned against alcohol abuse, sexism, and mindless machismo. Along with films like Big and Young Guns, Die Hard is credited with revitalizing 20th Century Fox, which had few successes in preceding years. It also showed the action genre was not dead. Initial critical reviews of Die Hard were mixed. Audiences reacted more positively. Polls by the market research firm CinemaScore found that audiences gave it an average rating of A+ on an A+ to F scale. McTiernan's direction was praised in the Chicago Tribune. Chicago Tribune. Dave Kerr wrote that McTiernan's logical direction created a sense of scale in the film that made it seem more significant than its content. The scene in which so-called terrorists take over the building was described as a textbook study by Kevin Thomas, providing a strong introduction to both McTiernan's abilities and DeBont's cinematography. Degovia's set design was complimented by Kerr's as ingenious. Ebert praised the stunts and special effects. Critics were conflicted over Willis's performance. Many considered Die Hard's Willis's breakout role, reviving his faltering transition from television to film star and demonstrating his leading man status and comedic range. Kathy Huffines and James Mills consider Willis's performance an evolution of his moonlighting character, David Addison, with less sexism and more masculinity. Huffines wrote that the performance improved as Willis used closer to his own working class background. Reviewers, including Terry Lawson and Paul Willisstein, believe that despite expectations, Willis had been well cast, bringing a necessary vulnerability and a sense of humor to a contemporary hero, one who displays remorse, fear, and indecision without being overly macho or comedic, and delivers dialogue that other action stars could not. Mark Andrews said that this vulnerability was essential to creating tension because audiences care about the character's fate. Some reviewers felt that Willis's strongest talent, his comedic ability, had been woefully underutilized. Writing for the Washington Post, Hal Hinson complimented Willis's grace and physical bravado that allowed him to stand along the likes of Stallone and Schwarzenegger. Conversely, Vincent Canby said that he lacked toughness. Reviewers generally agreed that Willis's dramatic acting was unimpressive or limited. Jay Boyar believed his abilities were perfect for McClane, although Kerr criticized him as only a television-level star. Richard Schickel said Willis's performance was whiny and self-involved, and that removing his undershirt by the film's denouement was the totality of his acting range. He acknowledged it was difficult to perform when acting only against special effects. Rickman's performance was praised. Curran James said he was the film's best feature, portraying the perfect snake, and Hinson likened his work to the sneering, malevolent performance of Sir Laurence Olivier in Richard III, 1955. Kerr described Gruber, a classic villain who combined the silliness of Claude Rains and the smiling dementia of actor George McCready. Canby said that Rickman provided the only credible performance, and Roger Ebert, who was otherwise critical of the film, singled it out for praise. Critics routinely praised Bedelia's performance and lamented that she was underused in favor of McClane's and Powell's relationship. Snicknell highlighted a scene in which McClane confesses his sins to Powell before rescuing his wife, robbing their marital reunion of meaning. Ebert and Schnickel both felt that only McClane's and Powell's character were developed. The film's success was credited to the remote relationships built between Willis, Rickman, and VelJohnson by Mike Sidoni, Huff-Hines and Mills credited the performance with anchoring the film. Ebert focused his criticism on the police captain portrayed by Gleason, citing the character as an example of a willfully useless and dumb obstruction that wasted screen time and weakened the plot. Thomas commended the casting of several minority actors. Oh, isn't that nice? We've got woke diversity in a 1988 film. Oh, we are so proud of them for including the bit black actors, so many of them in this film. Die Hard never used CGI for Hans Gruber death scene. It was only blue screen, and it looks 1,000% realistic. Are you kidding me? It looks like CGI. It looks so fake. The background and the guy's face are two totally different. Okay. Well, I must have seen a different movie. Die Hard is one of those movies that does not have a single flaw. Oh, yeah. Adrian loves it too. I think Adrian has seen it 15 times because it's 80s action greatness and Bruce Willis in his prime and his first action movie, Die Hard. What is this obsession over Die Hard? It's a great film. It's too long. It's better than the sequel, but I wouldn't put it in my top 10 favorite by any stretch. The action and violence were criticized by many reviewers. Kevin Thomas said the film had plot holes and lacked credibility. He believed that it was the result of a calculated effort to please the broadest possible audience, and concluded that it has squandered its potential as an intelligent thriller for numbing violence and carnage. Canby offered a similar sentiment, suggesting the film would appeal only to audiences that required a constant stream of explosions and loud noises. Like we do on this channel, we require a constant stream of explosions and loud noises. He described it as a nearly perfect movie for our time, designed to appeal to audiences can be described as kidults, adults with the mindset of children. All right. So I guess Karate Man and Adrian are both kidults. One violent scene in which Paul saves McClane by shooting Carl was singled out. Schnickel believed it to be a cynical scene that undermined the humanity formed between McClane and Powell by having Powell find redemption for his own mistakes through violence. Henson believed the audience was deliberately manipulated into cheering for the act Yeah, I thought that scene was kind of phony too. It was a tearjerker moment until the uh, the native guy with the blonde wig came out miraculously from death and started blasting away. Writing for the New York Times, James said the film offered fun escapism while relying on action cliches, but Henson countered that despite the relentless thrills, the film was not enjoyable. I thought it had too much filler time, but I still give it 5 out of 5 stars. Reviews identified allusions to Die Hard in films such as The Towering Inferno and The Poseidon Adventure, 1972, Alien, 1979, Aliens, 1986, and Robocop, 1987. Kerr said Die Hard emulated Alien and Robocop by developing a humorous and sentimental design that perfected the action genre, but in doing so, it lacked a personality of its own. Writing for Poughkeepsie Journal, Sidoni felt Die Hard made previous action blockbusters such as Predator, Missing in Action, and Rambo look like Tupperware parties. Die Hard was one of several 1988 films labeled morally objectionable by the Roman Catholic Church, along with The Last Temptation of Christ, Bull Durham, and A Fish Called Wanda. Robert Davi saw the film with Schwarzenegger. Schwarzenegger was positive but did not like Davi's character narrative, saying, "You were heroic, and now you've turned into an idiot." At the 1989 Academy Awards, Die Hard was nominated for Best Film Editing for Frank J. Urusti and John F. Link, Best Visual Effects for Richard Edlund, Alce DeSaro, Brent Boats, and Thane Morris, Best Sound Effects Editing for Stephen Hunter Flick and Richard Shore, and Best Sound for Don J. Bassman, Kevin F. Cleary, Richard Overton, and Al Overton Jr. Michael Kamen won a BMI TV Film Music Award for his work on the score. Die Hard was released on Video Home System, VHS cassette, in January 1989. It was a popular rental, debuting as the third most rented film on the early February rental charts, rising to number 1 the following week. It spent 6 of its first 7 weeks in release at number 1 until it was replaced by A Fish Called Wanda at the end of March. By 1997, it was estimated to have earned $36 million from rentals. Die Hard was released on DVD in 1999 as part of a collection with the sequels Die Hard 2, 1990, and Die Hard with a Vengeance, 1995. It was released separately as a special edition DVD in 2001, including commentary by McTiernan, Degovia, and Edlin, and deleted scenes, trailers, and behind-the-scenes images. It was released on Blu-ray in 2007. Die Hard: The Nakatomi Plaza Collection was released in 2015, collecting all 5 Die Hard films on Blu-ray in a container shaped like a Nakatomi Plaza. For its 30th anniversary in 2018, a remastered 4K resolution version was released on Ultra HD Blu-ray. The set also includes a standard Blu-ray and digital download. A limited edition steelbook case version was also released. Die Hard merchandise includes clothing, Funko Pops, coloring and activity books, crockery, Christmas jumpers and ornaments, and an illustrated Christmas book retelling the film. A third-person shooter video game, Die Hard, was released in 1989 for the Commodore 64 and Windows. Different top-down shooter versions were released for the TurboGrafx 16 and the Nintendo Entertainment System NES. The TurboGrafx 16 edition begins with the McClane fighting terrorists in jungle. The NES version offers a foot meter that slows McClane's movements after he repeatedly steps on shattered glass. Bruce Willis pulling out glass shards from his foot. Die Hard Trilogy 1996, a popular game for the PlayStation, adopted the first three Die Hard films. In 1997, the Japanese arcade game Dynamite Dika was redesigned and released in Western territories as Die Hard Arcade. Players choose either McClane or secondary character Chris Thompson to battle through Nakatomi Plaza, defeat terrorists led by White Fang, and rescue the president's daughter. Two first-person shooters were released in 2002, Die Hard Nakatomi Plaza, which recreates the events of Die Hard, and Die Hard Vendetta, which serves as a narrative to the film, pitting McClane against Gruber's son, Piet. Die Hard, The Ultimate Visual History, a book chronicling the development of the Die Hard film series, was released in 2018 to coincide with the film's 30th anniversary. A board game based on the film was released in 2019, developed by US Aopoly. Die Hard, The Nakatomi Heist, cast up to 4 players as McClane, Gruber, and his terrorists, each vying to complete their opposing tasks. An 1812 painting by Joseph Ferdinand Lancrenon of Odysseus, aided by Telemachus, preparing to slaughter his wife's suitors. Alexander Boone compared Odysseus' tale to John McClane's quest to rescue his wife from terrorists. Die Hard had been described by critics such as Richard Brody and Chris Hewitt as a story about obtaining redemption through violence. McClane comes to Los Angeles to save his marriage, but makes the same mistake that drove Holly away. Brody and Hewitt suggest that it is only after McClane defeats the terrorists through violence that their marriage is seemingly reconciled. Similarly, Powell is haunted after accidentally shooting a child and finds redemption by drawing his gun to shoot Carl. Several male characters who are driven by rage or ego suffer for it, including FBI agents Carl Ellis and McClane, who nearly loses Holly by showing off after shooting Gruber. Ebert notes the more even-tempered characters, other black people, fare better. McClane identifies himself as a Roman Catholic, a religion requiring penance to earn redemption. Brody said that McClane endures physical punishment, including his feet being cut by glass shards, to create bloody stigmata. In making these sacrifices, he salvages his family. In that sense, McClane can be seen as a modern working-class, Christ-like figure. Alexander Boone compares McClane violently reclaiming his wife to the Greek figure Odysseus slaughtering his wife's suitors. McClane is rewarded for his masculinity despite demonstrating negative male traits. Jeffrey Brown believed McClane's undershirt emphasizes his masculine physical form. This outfit is worn by other action Characters like Rambo and females displaying masculine traits such as Rachel McLish from Ace's Iron Eagle 3, sorry. Ace's Iron Eagle 3 and Linda Hamilton from Terminator 2 Judgment Day. Powell and Argyle are not McClane's physical equals, but they prioritize relationships, and when called on to act, they succeed. McClane possesses an imposing physicality, but is clumsy and reliant on improvisation, and succeeds only because of the relationship with his allies. It is McClane and Powell's relationship that is particularly instrumental to McClane's success. The pair share a non-romantic intimacy that allows McClane to confess his failings as a husband in a way he did not with Holly, allowing McClane to grow as a person. Gruber fails because he's isolated, self-interested, and sacrifices his team for his own survival. Peter Partial observed that McClane and Gruber are reflections of each other. Brody contrasts McClane an all-American stereotype compared to Western cowboy stars like Roy Rogers, John Wayne, and Gary Cooper to Gruber, classically educated European villain who refers to the U.S. as a bankrupt culture. It is a bankrupt culture. Elizabeth Bailey wrote that when compared to the superheroes of the previous decade in films like Superman 1978 and Raiders of the Lost Ark 1981, McClane is portrayed as physically but realistically masculine, conveying the idea of a real man who possesses independent intrinsic strength. According to Justin Chang and Mark Olson, this can be seen as a response to Reaganism. The political positions of the United States, Ronald Reagan promoting values of the American dream, self-reliance, initiative, and technological advancement. I have no idea what these people are talking about, and I don't think they do either. Willis believes that if given the chance, McClane would pass the responsibility of dealing with the terrorists on to anyone else, but he's ultimately compelled to serve as a reluctant hero when the character is introduced. He is wearing his wedding ring. Scott Tobias wrote, "This serves as a symbol of his marital commitment." Holly is presented as the opposite. She uses her maiden name and is not wearing her wedding ring. Instead, she is gifted a Rolex watch by her employers, serving as a symbol of her commitment to her job and the division in her marriage. Oh, sounds like my second wife. When McClane unclasps the watch, the film's end to free Holly from Gruber's grasp. The totem of their separation is broken, and they appear to have reconciled. Paschal describes the negative portrayal of female characters in Die Hard. They appear sexualized in pinup posters, suggest drinking while pregnant, or away from their families on Christmas Eve at a work function. Holly takes a position of authority following her boss' death, but that power is delegated to her by Gruber and is used in traditionally feminine ways to take care of her colleagues. Takagi is replaced in Holly's life with a different dominant male, McClane. Darren Payne wrote that Die Hard reflects the contemporary decline of men as the main household earner, as more women joined the workforce and blue-collar jobs were being lost to foreign countries. In response, an U.S. cowboy saves the day, rescuing his captured wife from a foreign-owned tower. Die Hard has elements that are anti-government, anti-bureaucracy, and anti-corporation. The terrorist asserts McClane cannot harm him because there are no rules. There are A terrorist asserts McClane cannot harm him because there are rules for policemen, rules he intends to exploit. McClane responds, "So my captain keeps telling me," suggesting that he operates outside of bureaucratically approved procedures. Brody wrote that the police often present a bigger obstacle than the terrorists. They believe they are in control of events, unaware that terrorists have actually anticipated their every action. The police chief is portrayed as incompetent. The FBI is shown to be indifferent to the lives of the hostages as long as they kill the terrorists. This was a part of the film that I really enjoyed, showing the incompetence of government in general. And Bruce Willis is their only hope. This guy who's vacationing at a holiday party from the New York Police Department. McClane is an every man fighting against terrorists who are dressed like elite big city workers. As Ellis states, the only difference between the corporate employees and the terrorists is that he uses a pen and Gruber uses a gun. The police, the FBI, and an intrusive journalist are each punished for standing in McClane's way. Partial notice: the Christmas setting can be seen as an attack on traditional societal values. The corporation hosts a party on Christmas Eve, keeping employees away from their families, and the villains cynically appropriate Christmas iconographies. By defeating them, McClane upholds tradition and defends society. Alongside the mainly German group of terrorists, Nakatomi Plaza is owned by a Japanese corporation, and the hostages are American. Brody identified this as reflecting U.S. anxieties about foreign powers at a time when Japanese technology firms threatened to dominate the U.S. technology industry. I guess VHS machines, and cars, maybe. When McClane prevails, the suggestion is that U.S. ingenuity will prevail. I don't know about that. U.S. old enemies, Germany and Japan, are portrayed as having forsaken their integrity in the pursuit of financial gain. Dave Kerr said the film embodies a resentful 1980s blue-collar rage against feminists, yuppies, the media, the authorities, and foreign nationals. Brody notes the film can also be considered progressive in its portrayal of its African American black characters. Sorry, what does African American mean? As cast members, VelJohnson, Gilliard, and White are featured in prominent and important roles. Oh, we got our woke diversity going. Congratulations, lamestream media. The AV Club noted that unlike many other 1980s films, Die Hard is not an allegory for the Vietnam War. The film mocks the idea when one FBI agent remarks that their helicopter assault is reminiscent of the war. His partner responds that at the time he was only in middle school. Even so, Empire believed the film references Vietnam by showcasing an ill-equipped local taking on highly equipped foreign invaders. This time, U.S. wins. Drew Ayers described the complex layout of Nakatomi Plaza as analogous to the concealing jungles of Vietnam. Before Die Hard's release, Hollywood action films also often starred muscle-bound men like Schwarzenegger and Stallone, who portrayed invincible, infallible, catchphrase spouting heroes in unrealistic settings. Willis's portrayal of John McClane redefined the action genre, presenting a normal person with an average physique completely counter to that archetype. He is failing both personally and professionally and serves as a vulnerable, identifiable hero who openly sobs, admits his fear of death, and sustains lasting damage. Importantly, his one-liners do not come from a place of superiority over his foes, but as a nervous reaction to the extreme situation in which he finds himself, which he is only able to overcome through ending suffering and using his own initiative. Similarly, Rickman's portrayal of Gruber redefined action villains who had been previously been bland figures or eccentric madmen. Gruber ushered in the clever nemesis. He is educated, intelligent villain who serves as the antithesis of the hero. He has been referred to as one of the most iconic villains in the genre. Empire magazine called Gruber one of the finest villains since Darth Vader. Rickman described the role as a huge event in his life, though other more typical 1980s style action films were released. The genre gradually shifted to focus on smaller, more confined settings, everyman heroes, and charming villains with competent plans. Die Hard raised Willis from television stardom to worldwide recognition and brought fame to Rickman. Willis's salary was seen as the peak of the 1980s bidding wars between new and old managers vying for jobs. The New York Times described it as the salary equivalent of an earthquake, and MGM UA chairman Alan Ladd Jr. said that it threw the business out of whack. Like everybody else in town, I was stunned. It was seen as the most substantial change to salaries since Dustin Hoffman was paid $5.5 million to star in 1982 Tootsie, at a time when top salaries range from $2 million to $3 million. It was expected that salaries for major stars would increase significantly to ensure they were paid more than newest star like Willis. McTiernan transitioned his success into directing adaptation of one of his favorite novels, The Hunt for Red October, 1990. VelJohnson's performance resulted in his casting in the 1989 to 1998 sitcom Family Matters. In 2017, Die Hard was selected by the United States Library of Congress to be presented in the National Film Registry for being culturally, historically, or aesthetically significant. In July 2007, Bruce Willis donated the undershirt worn in the film to the National Museum of American History at the Smithsonian Institution. The blood and sweat-stained shirt is considered iconic, an emblem of McClane's difference from archetypal invincible heroes. Fox Plaza has become a popular tourist attraction. Although the building itself cannot be toured, a floor used for film became Ronald Reagan's office. When his head of staff toured the under construction area, it was littered with broken glass and bullet casings. A giant mural depicting McClane's crawl through a Nakatomi Plaza vent was erected at the Fox studio lot in Century City to celebrate the film's 25th anniversary in 2013. One of the most influential films of the 1980s, Die Hard served as the blueprint for action films that came after, especially throughout the 1990s. The term "die hard" has become shorthand to describe a lone everyman hero who must overcome an overwhelming opposing force in a relatively small and confined location. Examples include Under Siege, 1992, Die Hard on a Battleship, Cliffhanger, 1993, Die Hard on Mountain, Speed, 1994, Die Hard on a Bus, and Air Force One, 1997, Die Hard on Plane. Willis himself recalled being pitched a film that was Die Hard in a Skyscraper. Oh, that was with Anna Nicole Smith. He said that he was sure it had already been done. It was not until the 1996 action thriller film The Rock, Die Hard on Alcatraz Island, that the tone of action films changed significantly, and the increasing use of CGI effects allowed films to move beyond the limitations of real locations and practical stunts. Writing for The Guardian in 2018, Scott Tobias observed that none of these later films readily captured the complete effectiveness of the Die Hard story. The film has been a source of inspiration for filmmakers, including Lexi Alexander, Darren Aronofsky, Brad Bird, Joe Carnahan, Gareth Evans, Barry Jenkins, Joe Lynch, Paul Scheer, Brian Taylor, Dan Trachtenberg, Colin Trevorrow, and Paul W. S. Anderson. During the lockdowns, it was among the action films director James Gunn recommended people to watch. The film's popularity has seen it referenced across a wide variety of media, including TV shows, films, video games, music, and novels. It has been referenced in the media targeted at children. Willis's cameos as McClane in the 1993 parody film Loaded Weapon 1. There's been much debate over whether Die Hard is a Christmas film. Those in favor argue that the Christmas setting is sufficient to qualify it as a Christmas film. Those opposed argue that it is an action film whose events begin to take place at Christmas. A 2017 YouGov poll of over 5,000 UK citizens determined that only 31% believe that Die Hard is a Christmas film. Those who did skewed under the age of 24. Those who were opposed were mainly over 50. A similar Morning Consult poll of 2,200 U.S. citizens determined that only 25% supported its status as a Christmas film. Those aged between 30 and 44 who were young during the peak of the film's popularity were most in favor. Souza and Stewart support it being a Christmas film, while Willis feels it is not. On the film's 30th anniversary in 2018, 20th Century Fox stated that it was the greatest Christmas story ever told, re-releasing a re-edited Die Hard trailer that portrays it as a traditional Christmas film. According to De Souza, Silva predicted the film would be played at Christmas time for years. Excuse me. Die Hard is now considered one of the greatest action films ever made. On the film's 30th anniversary in 2018, The Hollywood Reporter wrote that Die Hard was easily one of the most influential films in the action genre, whose influence could still be seen in contemporary films. The Guardian and the British Film Institute regard it as the quintessential U.S. action film, the latter calling it one of the 10 greatest action films of all time. Deadline Hollywood labeled it a staple of the action genre that launched a classic franchise. Writing for Vanity Fair, K. Austin Collins said that despite the number of times he had viewed the film, it remained a persistently satisfying and well-crafted piece. It is listed in the 2003 film reference book, 1001 Movies You Must See Before You Die, which says that the film effectively redefines the action movie as one-man army. A retrospective review by the AV Club said that Willis's everyman persona is the key to the film's success. Rickman said he believed it had continued to find fans decades after its release because it was delivered with wit and style. Contemporary review aggregator Rotten Tomatoes offers a 94% approval rating from aggregated reviews of 84 critics with an average rating of 8.6 out of 10. The consensus reads, its many imitators and sequels have never come close to matching the top thrills of the definitive holiday action classic. The film has a score of 72 out of 100 on Metacritic based on 14 critics, including generally favorable reviews. Readers of Rolling Stone ranked it the number 10 action film of all time in a 2015 poll, while Empire readers voted at number 20 in 2017. In 2001, the American Film Institute, AFI, ranked Die Hard number 39 on its 100 Thrills list, recognizing the most heart-pounding films. In 2008, Empire ranked at number 29 on its list of the 500 greatest movies of all time. In 2014, the Hollywood Reporter's entertainment industry voted ranking named it the 83rd best film of all time. The film's characters have also been recognized. In 2003, the AFI ranked Hans Gruber number 46 on its 100 heroes and villains list. In 2006, Empire ranked McClane number 12 on its list of 100 greatest movie characters. Gruber followed at number 17. Several publications have listed it as one of the greatest action films of all times, including number 1 by Empire, IGN, and Entertainment Weekly, number 10 by Time Out New York, number 14 by The Guardian, number 18 by Men's Health, and unranked by Complex, Esquire, and Evening Standard. Adding to that debate over Die Hard's status as a Christmas film, it has appeared on several lists of the top holiday films, including at number 1 by Empire and San Francisco Gate, number 4 by Entertainment Weekly and The Hollywood Reporter, number 5 by Digital Spy, and number 8 in the Radio Times Readers Poll. The success of Die Hard spawned 4 film sequels, beginning with Die Hard 2 in 1990, which was rushed into production to capitalize on the original's popularity. Jeremy Irons in 2015, he portrayed Hans Gruber's brother, Simon, in 1995's Die Hard with a Vengeance. Stewart and McTiernan did not return for Die Hard 2. McTiernan was replaced by Rennie Harlin. Die Hard 2 is the last film in the series to feature the involvement of D'Souza, Bedelia, VelJohnson, Atherton, Silver, and Gordon. Silver and Gordon fell out with each other and Willis after filming concluded, delaying production of the third film, Die Hard with a Vengeance, in 1995. The sequel also took longer to develop because of the difficulty in scripting an original scenario that had not already been used by one of the Die Hard's many imitators. McTiernan returned to direct Die Hard with a Vengeance, his only other film in the series. The film's plot pits McClane against Hans Gruber's brother Simon, played by Jeremy Irons. Live Free or Die Hard, also known as Die Hard 4.0, was released in 2007. In it, McClane teams up with the hacker Justin Leong to fight cyber terrorists led by Thomas Gabriel, Timmy Oliphant. The film was controversial for its studio mandate to target younger audiences, requiring much of the violence and profanity prevalent in the rest of this series to be excluded. Even so, it was financially and critically successful. The fifth film in the series, A Good Day to Die Hard, 2013, teams McClane up with his son Jack for an adventure in Moscow. The film was considered a financial success. It was derided by critics and fans, and the negative reception stalled the franchise. A Good Day to Die Hard is considered the weakest entry in the series. Although Willis expressed interest in the sixth and final film, plans for a prequel film were canceled during the acquisition of 20th Century Fox by Disney in 2019, and Willis retiring for acting in 2022 after being diagnosed with aphasia, a condition which affects his ability to communicate. I thought he had dementia. Die Hard remains the most critically acclaimed film in the series based on aggregated reviews. As the sequels progressed, they increasingly hewed closer to the 1980s style action films Die Hard had eschewed, McClane becoming an invincible killing machine, surviving damage that would have killed his original incarnation. NPR called Die Hard a genuinely great movie whose legacy has been tarnished by lackluster sequels. According to The Guardian, the evolution of the action genre can be traced by the differences in each Die Hard sequel as McClane evolves into from human into a superhuman. Comic book prequel and sequel have been released. Die Hard Year One is set in 1976, and it chronicles McClane as a rookie officer. A Million Ways to Die Hard is set 30 years after Die Hard and features a retired McClane seeking out a serial killer. And now let's go to the IMDb page. Die Hard at IMDb. Oh. All right, Die Hard 1988, rated R for nudity and I don't know what else. 2 hours, 12 minutes. Gets a whopping 8.2 out of 10 on IMDb. And an incredible amount of ratings, 959,000 ratings. Its popularity is 624, down 188. A New York City police officer tries to save his estranged wife and several others taken hostage by terrorists during a Christmas party at the Nakatomi Plaza in Los Angeles. Nominated for 4 Oscars, 8 wins, and 8 nominations total. More like this: Die Hard 2, Die Hard with a Vengeance, Indiana Jones, and something. Jurassic Park. The fictional Nakatomi Plaza is the headquarters of 20th Century Studios. So the studios could use one of its own buildings, didn't have to hold back on stunts and action sequences. While Jeb Stewart was writing the screenplay, he did a tour of the building and immediately incorporated some of the locations and objects he found there into his script as set pieces, such as the cart that McClane and Carl end up riding down during their fight. The company charged itself rent for the use of then finished building. Some of the middle floors were occupied by legal and administrative departments, so only empty floors were used for the filming. Still, the filming of scenes that involved gunfire had to be postponed until after hours because some of the employees from the active floors started complaining about the noise. Several times during transmissions with two-way radios, characters intercept each other, which would be impossible given the type of radios they were using. I was wondering how he's able to talk to their cop, but the terrorists aren't listening. It seemed rather inconsistent, the radio frequencies. Quote, supervisor, as McClane tries to call up police. Attention, whoever you are. This channel is reserved for emergencies calls only. John McClane. No effing poop, lady. Does it sound like I'm ordering pizza? In the widescreen version, the 20th Century Fox logo is stretched. The Ultimate Edition DVD contains the following deleted extended scenes: extended power shutdown sequence, extended opening fight scene, brief dialogue in the first Hans McClane confrontation, extended scene where Robinson Powell briefed the FBI on the tower situation, brief dialogue when Hans interrogates Tagagi, brief dialogue after Theo says, "You don't bring me along for my charming personality," extended alternate dialogue in McClane Power conversation after McClane uses a plastic explosives, the brief scene of FBI agents getting stuck in thorn bushes as they make their way towards the building. At the end, McClane says, "You got a warranty for this?" Holly's watch, a gift from Nakatomi Corporation, to which Holly laughs. Argyle's dialogue as Powell's police cruiser flies by in the background. Brief Ellis dialogue reacting to the terrorist intrusion. City engineer briefly coughs before pulling out the power cord. Brief dialogue in Hans Carl argument about neutralizing McClane. Additional Holly dialogue after seeing Carl's reaction to McClane's escape. This was edited into Died with a Vengeance, 1995. Soundtrack Sing in the Rain, written by Arthur Freed and Nakio Herb Brown. Here's a 10 out of 10 review on IMDb, written by Leofwine Drake. Leofwine Draka, excuse me. It's dated June 24th, 2016. And they're giving it the same rating that I gave it, a 10 out of 10. The title of the review is "It Can't Be Better." This original action classic has been hugely influential over the years, and it's no surprise, as it's one of the best action thrillers ever made. New meaning is brought to the word action, as here it is, exhilarating, furious, and nothing less than exciting. The premise is simple: one location, one good guy and 12 bad guys. Cue lots of explosions, fistfights, blood, violence, and plenty of shooting too. The thrills come from the suspense of Willis using his wits, as well as his brawn, to fight the bad guys and save the hostages. When watching this film, what becomes immediately apparent is how fresh it is. There hasn't been filmed. This hasn't been filmed with some cheap cameras for a quick buck. It looks professional and couldn't be less polished. The photography is clear and brings out the best of the surroundings. Schwarzenegger and Stallone were the top stars of the action genre. Bruce Willis excels as a wisecracking, sardonic cop, and you can't fail to like him. He's consistently witty and provides a powerful presence when needed. Comes as no surprise he lived off this image for the next 6 or 7 years. The supporting casts aren't half bad either. The reliable Bonnie Badella takes a break from her usually highbrow moral dilemma television movie fare. Willis's tough wife, while Reginald VelJohnson is also great as a sympathetic cop. You just want to hug him. But most memorable of all is Alan Rickman and his excellent turn as the cool, calculated terrorist with a carefully crafted German accent and a fine line in natty suits. Rickman is the bad guy of modern cinema. Watch any subsequent action film with terrorists, and you'll see people trying to be him. He's that good. The rest of the cast of terrorists have all been picked from their imposing looks, and they're not bad either. Keep your eyes peeled for fearsome Bond baddie Robert Davi in a minor role as an FBI man, as well as the tense running around in corridors and standoffs between Willis and the various creeps. This film really delivers in the action stakes. The guys here really do look like they're trying their hardest to kill each other. And we get people flying downstairs, getting chains wrapped around their necks, getting shot all over the place. Every kill that Willis makes is original and exciting. There are also plenty of ace stunts, like when Willis jumps off an exploding roof with only a fire hose tied around his waist. The gore level is high graphic, in fact, with people being shot apart wherever you look. It's definitely a film for all cinema fans to enjoy, consistently entertaining and strong enough to withstand repeated viewings. This is the first and final word on the one guy versus lots of bad guys subgenre of the action flick. All right, there you have it, my Die Hard review. Let's take a look at what's coming down the pike. I've got Undersea Kingdom, 1936, Moonshine Mountain, 1964, and Kioma, 1976. Now I'm up over 2 hours, my longest review yet, thanks to Karate Man and the never-ending Wikipedia page about Die Hard. Laters.